Welcome back to Ultimate S&S, guys. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Weekend is coming up here pretty soon. Been outside working in the garden a little bit. As you can see, it's pretty overcast. Not seen any rain yet, but it gave me an opportunity to get out here where the sun's just not quite as hard. So I'm going to show you what we've been working on. If you remember the garden, we had the corn and it played out, and then we had our tomatoes and they were playing out. We got the rest of that off the vines today, so I went ahead and mowed and got this tilled in. So this is going to be where I'm going to put the collard greens in. As you can see, I got to come through here and pick out some of these tall weeds still. But everything has been tilled in and all, and I'm just going to kind of widespread these collard green seeds because they're so small. I'm just going to put them out and just sow it real heavy and see what happens. And this is going to give me a big source of food, not just for ourselves, but also for our chickens. And I'm going to go to the store and pick up some 10-10-10 fertilizer later. And the reason I'm doing that is the quail manure does very well, but as high as it is and as much as I'm having to water this garden right now, it doesn't stay in the ground very long. Here's that other area where we had corn in the back. If you remember, we came in here and we put in a bunch of chicken compost manure. That was just manure and pine flake and straw, stuff like that. And we tilled all that into the ground real good. And we planted out our seeds and everything is looking good. These are going to be that new golden zucchini. I'm not sure how it's going to do, but it looks like it's growing very fast. I might actually have my rows kind of tight. Not too worried about it. They're going to be able to run. Back over in here, we're going to put our tomato plants in. I'm not seeing anything sprout up. I planted some seeds directly in the ground out here. The other side of the garden, we had a few pop. Over here, I'm not seeing anything pop up yet. So I do have a bunch inside the RV that are inside a little utility shower that are just in there doing its thing, getting ready to germinate and all. So once that has completed, we'll have some more tomato plants over here. Looks like our cantaloupe plants are doing very well. While these may look like they are sown too close together, ordinarily they probably would be, but we're going to be putting in a fence right in here. Not taking the time to cut the fence yet. I've got it laid out over on the side of the yard there. We're going to get that cut into two pieces. A piece of it's going here and a piece of it on that other side for them cucumbers. But everything looks like it's going good. Over here we have another one of these zucchini plants. And then we have, looks like 3 tomato plants. This one here is going to have to get moved over. I'm going to move this one over. I want to have about 2 foot between them. So that's going to use, it's going to fill this gap up here pretty good. And these are those indeterminate tomatoes. These are supposed to continue to grow year round until a frost comes. So we're going to just have to wait and see how that actually works out. Our okra come out and we picked yesterday, and it was heavy. As you can see, it does not take much time for them pods to start popping back in, guys. So the reason I show you this stuff is, one, I'm out here doing it anyway, but I think it's important to show people just how a little bit of work is going to go a long way in providing food, not just for you, but for your family as well, for your communities, your groups, and things like that. We're seeing the prices continue to go up. Our food prices are going up. We're seeing the price of fuel go through the roof. We're watching the diesel prices with dramatic increase, guys. And if you can start cutting money back in budgets. A lot of people have gotten rid of cable providers and things like that already. A lot of people have been cutting back in their food budgets as well because they just can't afford it. So this is a cheap way that's going to, one, it's going to benefit you because you're going to be getting some crops in. You're going to be getting crops in, which is going to be feeding you, but also the care that you're going to be giving the garden. That is actually going to really benefit you in the health department as well. It's going to get you where you're going to be a little bit better in shape. Just make sure you talk to your doctor before you do things like this, and he's going to be able to give you a little bit more helpful suggestions on how you can garden based off of what your health conditions are. So always check with your doctors. If it's real hot, I recommend do not go outside when it's real hot. Wait for overcast weather. Wait for evenings or early in the mornings to do anything that you're going to do outside. And not only are you going to be helping put yourself in a way where you're healthier because you're getting some exercise, the food that you're going to be eating is going to be a lot healthier than what you find in the stores. Understand a lot of these labels we see on produce today that's talking about non-GMO, labels that are talking about all organic. A lot of that organic stuff is a GMO plant that just hasn't been put had pesticides put on it, chemical pesticides and stuff like that. So I've not used any pesticides out here. What I have used is neem oil. And early on, before we got into blooming, I was using my diatomaceous earth because I was seeing a lot of squash beetles and stuff like that originally. And that's not really just a squash beetle. They will eat any kind of vining plants. They kind of hang out in weeded fields and stuff like that. So if you're going to a field area, you're going to need to make sure that you deal with those pests. And every time you plant a garden, you're going to have fewer pest issues later, as long as you keep your weeds in control. And the more you keep those weeds in control, you're going to have a lot easier time gardening. So this area out here that I'm growing in, my brother had put a garden in. It's been probably a couple years ago now. And I mean, it did pretty good, but anytime you first do that first cutting, it's really hard to get that garden going right. So we took and I just started putting quail manure up in the front section of that garden. And as you can see, those plants have just really been producing very well. When you start losing plants, and understand you're going to lose plants, whether it be from the heat, maybe the plant has just lived its life cycle. Not all plants live forever. Most plants, once wintertime comes and we start getting those frosts, it's going to slow them down on their production, and it's going to kill the plant. And a lot of times during the summertime, you're going to have plants that are great for fall, but maybe not great for summer. So those plants, they will play out and they will die. Don't let it discourage you. Just have a backup plan for something that's growing very well. I could tell you that squash, zucchini plants, cucumber plants, things like that, as long as you give them the midday sun when the sun is at its highest, if you give it some shade during that time of day and you make sure that you water those in the evening, you're going to have very, healthy plants. You're going to have a lot of produce coming off of that as well. And I think it's important right now that we start directing our attention to things that actually matter. So what I mean by that is it's very easy to sit back and say, well, I don't have food shortages in this area. And that may be the case for the stores that you're shopping at. But understand there is a worldwide food shortage right now. We're hearing from the UN food program and things like that. If you will go to their websites, you can find that they're expecting some really bad, almost famine level events here in this country. And it's going to be even worse in other countries as well. And these other countries where we get things such as wheats and grains and stuff, they're actually closing their exports. They're no longer sending that to our country. So you're going to have to figure out what it is that we're going to be running out of. And the easiest way to do that is to look at the pricing. The higher the pricing, the higher demand, the lower the supply. So that's going to tell you a little bit what you need to figure out on that. When you're doing this type of gardening and stuff, you can either be eating it as it comes out of the garden and save on your grocery bill and use that money to get stuff like long-term storage foods, canned foods, things like that. Or you can take and you can put all this in jars, get it canned and all that, and continue to buy food at the store. It's up to you how you want to do it. To me, it's easier to use that as food now and use part of the budget that you're saving money on. If you've already had a stocking budget as far as for prepping, just keep that budget. You're going to buy a little bit less, but you're getting the food that you need. You can take some of that grocery money and put it towards some of these gas prices that's going up. Or you can take it and you can use it to get more food. You can use it to get supplies. You can buy medical supplies. You can buy first aid supplies. You can buy your prescription drugs and stuff and try to get larger supplies of them set back if you can. You need to make sure that those are shelf stable type of deals. You don't want to be getting something that's only going to last 30 days because it's not shelf stable. So you need to really talk to your doctors about those types of events and stuff and what type of medicine that you can stock up on. And it wouldn't even hurt to find out about some homeopathic remedies, which is basically just natural supplements and stuff that maybe reduce the amount of the medicine that you have to take as well. So, but what you're going to find out, you start eating healthy and you start working out a little bit. And I'm not talking about going outside and lifting dumbbells like Survival Living does. You can do that. That's a great exercise to do. But not everyone can do that. I understand that. But if you will get out in your yard and you will do some gardening and stuff, that's going to help you. If you cannot get outside and work a tiller and a mower, hey man, I completely understand. But you can go get some pots. You can get some potting soil and you can start planting plants and setting them outside your house, on your deck or in front of the deck, things like that. You're not going to have to deal with the weeding and stuff as well. I know a lot of people that are talking about their gardens, and when you get talked to them about their gardens, they're asking if the quail manure would be too hot for their herb garden. And when you talk about gardening, I think you're actually talking about gardening. But when you're doing herb gardens, and that's the only gardening that you're doing, and it's herbs that smell good, and maybe you don't really use them in cooking and stuff, it's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. If you're using herbs that can be used for medical supplies and stuff, then yeah, I can definitely see that. My advice to you on that is you want to use composted quail manure, and you want to make sure that you're not using too hot. If it's not composted properly and you're using herbs, it's going to burn those things up. Um, it's not too bad out here because we'll take about a couple shovelfuls, mix with 5 gallons of water, let it sit overnight. That displaces the nitrogen a little bit, and we're able to water our plants. And that seems to really help us out over here. But it's going to depend on the quality of soil that you have. If you have soil that holds nutrients in, then you're probably not going to have to fertilize and things as often as I do. I'm going to get some granular 10-10-10 at the store and start using some of that around some of the plants out there, because it has a tendency to stay in the ground a little longer. What I'm noticing with the quail manure is about 3 or 4 decent rains, or having to water it heavy about once a week to almost every 2 weeks. If I'm not back out there dumping more in the ground with that quail manure, it's that compost tea, the plants start suffering. They start getting deficiencies and stuff. It's because of the sandy soil that we have here. It does not hold nutrients in the ground. Now, you can build those soils up by buying potting soil or amending soil, topsoils and stuff to mix into the ground. But understand, if you have that much sand like we do out here, it's going to leach on down into the ground too. It might last good for a little bit, but eventually you're going to have to be adding more. So I'm trying to come up with remedies to be able to just use the dirt that's already out here and use the supplies that I have for keeping chickens and keeping quail as well. So I hope everyone's having a wonderful day.
Hey, hit that subscribe button. It's right there. Did they hit the subscribe button?